Are you sure you know who you really are? What if everything you believe about yourself is just an illusion? You think there's a self-observing reality? But what if the observer never existed? This isn't just philosophy. It's something that can completely change your life. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you what no one ever told you about your consciousness. And once you understand it, there's no going back. Have you ever had the feeling that there's a you inside, watching everything that happens? Like there's a control center, a fixed point of consciousness observing the world go by. What if I told you that this observer you believe yourself to be doesn't actually exist? That it's nothing more than an illusion created by your own mind? Sounds strange, I know. After all, your whole life, you've been taught to believe that there's a you looking at reality from the outside, separately. But is that really true? Is there actually an I that observes? Or is this just another layer of the illusion of identity? In this video, we're going to expose the truth behind this mistaken perception and how you can transcend this illusion using the principles of the Hermetic Laws. We'll explore how the principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence, and the principle of vibration reveal that the I that observes is not who you truly are. But why does this matter? Because this shift in perception isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. It can completely transform the way you live, how you deal with emotions, how you interact with the world, and even how you manifest your reality. If you want to understand what's really going on behind your perception, stick around until the end, because what we're about to reveal might change everything you believe about yourself. The first Hermetic Law states, "The all is mind. The universe is mental." This means that everything we experience, perceive, and believe to be real is actually a manifestation of the universal mind. But here's the problem. The human mind creates the illusion that there's a separate self, distinct from the rest of reality. This self sees itself as an external observer, as if sitting in a control room, watching the world from the outside. That's the grand illusion. You are not separate from what you observe. The very act of observing is already part of what is being observed. The I that supposedly sees reality is, in truth, just another thought within the universal mind. Imagine a drop of water floating in the ocean. It believes itself to be independent, a separate being, but in reality, it was never anything but part of the ocean. In the same way, you were never separate from universal consciousness. You just believed you were. And this misconception leads to suffering. When you think you are an isolated self, you feel vulnerable, insecure, anxious. But what if you started seeing things differently? What if you realized you are not a fixed entity, but rather a flow of consciousness within something much greater? Here's something powerful you can try right now. Close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself, who am I? Carefully observe any answer that arises. Maybe a name, a memory, a sense of being someone. Now look a little deeper. Who is perceiving these thoughts? The thought I am so-and-so appears and disappears. But who notices that? If you keep investigating, you'll see that every answer that comes up is just another passing thought. And yet, something remains. Something is aware that thoughts come and go, that something is not a separate observer. It is consciousness itself, formless, without a fixed identity, without limits. It is the universal mind manifesting through you. And once you realize this, everything starts to change. The idea of a solid, unchanging I begins to dissolve. You see that the observer and the observed are not two distinct things, but simply different expressions of the same reality. And this realization leads us to an even deeper principle, the correspondence between what is within and what is without. The second Hermetic Law teaches us, as above, so below, as within, so without. This means that there is no real separation between you and the world around you. The idea of an inner self observing an external world is just a trick of the mind. But stop and think. When you're happy, doesn't the world seem more beautiful? Don't the people around you seem friendlier? Now, when you're angry or sad, doesn't everything feel heavier, more chaotic? This happens because what you see outside of you is actually a reflection of what's within. The observer is not a neutral spectator of reality. It is reality itself, expressing itself from a particular point of view. It's like a mirror. You look at it and see a reflection, but you forget that the reflection is just a projection of your own image. In the same way, what you call the external world is not separate from your internal perception. What you feel, think, and believe completely shapes the way you see everything around you. And if this is true, then what happens when you change your perception? Try something simple right now. Close your eyes for a moment and bring to mind a happy memory, something that made you feel whole, complete. It could be a special moment from childhood, a deep connection with someone, or a sense of peace that appeared out of nowhere. Now, open your eyes and look around. Notice how, for a few moments, everything feels lighter. Did this change happen because the world itself changed? Or because your internal vibration shifted? This is the principle of correspondence in action. What is within reflects what is without. And that means that by changing the way you perceive reality, you transform your own experience of life. But there's an even deeper detail to all of this. If what you see outside is just a reflection, then who is the observer? If everything is just a play of mirrors, does a fixed self really exist, watching everything happen? Or is the observer just part of this dynamic flow, always changing, always vibrating? This brings us to the third Hermetic Law, the principle of vibration. The third Hermetic Law teaches us, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates, and that includes you. The biggest mistake we make is believing that the self is something fixed, unchanging, continuous, as if there were a permanent identity inside us that never shifts. But stop and think, is the you that exists now the same as the one from 5 years ago? If you look at your own life, you'll see that your personality has changed, your beliefs have changed, your body has changed, even the way you see the world has changed. So, who is the real you? If there were a fixed observer within you, it should remain exactly the same throughout your life. But that doesn't happen. What we call I is just a temporary vibrational pattern within the infinite flow of consciousness. The mind tries to cling to an identity because it creates the illusion of control. But the reality is that you are not a static being. You are a process in motion. It's like a river. Looking at the water and saying, "This is the same river as yesterday," doesn't make sense because the water is always flowing. In the same way, saying, "I am this person," doesn't make sense either because you are always changing. Now, try something. Close your eyes and bring to mind a childhood memory, a specific moment, maybe a day at school, a birthday, a meaningful conversation. Now ask yourself, was that the same me as now? Then, recall a difficult moment in your life, a time of pain, uncertainty, or change. And now, is that you still the same one hearing this right now? If you observe carefully, you'll realize that there is no fixed self that has remained unchanged over time. There is only a continuous flow of consciousness, always moving, always transforming. And if that's true, then who is the observer? The answer is that there is no separate self observing the flow. The observer and the flow are the same thing. Consciousness is not watching reality from the outside. It is reality itself in motion. And when this realization becomes clear, something powerful happens. The need to cling to a fixed identity disappears. You no longer need to defend who you are. You no longer need to fear change. Because the truth is, you were never something fixed to begin with. And it's exactly this understanding that can transform your life in the everyday world. If up until now, this new perspective is already shifting the way you see reality, imagine how many people are still trapped in this illusion, without even questioning it. YouTube will only show this video to more people if you give it that push right now. So if this reflection is resonating with you, support this knowledge, hit the like button now, and help this message reach those who need it most. And if you're not part of our community yet, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This journey doesn't end here. Now, let's go deeper, because the next insight could change everything. Understanding that the observer and the observed are the same is not just a philosophical concept. It completely changes the way you live, think, and react to everyday situations. Think about how much energy we waste trying to defend a fixed identity. When someone criticizes us, we feel the need to argue, to prove we're right, to protect this idea of who we are. But if the self is just a flow in constant change, what exactly are we trying to protect? This means that criticism no longer has to affect you the same way. When someone judges you, they're only judging a temporary version of you, a moment in the flow, not something fixed or permanent. Suddenly, You realize you no longer have to react with anger, fear, or resentment. You can simply observe, let it pass, and move on. And this applies to everything. If you understand that your identity is not fixed, then the problems that seem overwhelming today lose their weight. That anxiety about the future, that regret over the past, all of it dissolves when you realize that life is not about a self trapped in time, but about consciousness flowing through experience. Now think about your external reality. If the observer and the observed are one, then what you feel and think internally shapes the way you perceive the world. If you believe the world is a hostile place, that belief reflects in everything you perceive. You attract experiences that confirm that view. But if your internal vibration shifts, your external perception shifts with it. This means that changing your reality starts from within. It's not about trying to control the world around you, but about observing what you are projecting onto it. When you change your frequency, the way reality responds to you also transforms. And there's something even deeper in this. If everything is a flow, then the present moment is all that exists. The self from the past has already dissolved. The self from the future doesn't exist yet. The only point where consciousness truly manifests is in the now. This means that every moment is a new opportunity. You don't have to be stuck in old patterns. You don't have to carry the weight of who you think you are. At every instant, you can choose to start over, reinvent yourself, vibrate in a different way. And in this realization lies true freedom. Because awakening is not about discovering a definitive self. Awakening is realizing that you were never a fixed self to begin with. And when that happens, everything changes. You've spent your entire life believing there was a self inside you, a separate observer watching life from the outside. But now you know the truth. The observer and the observed are the same. The Hermetic Laws show us that there is no real separation between you and the universe. The principle of mentalism reveals that your identity is just a thought within the universal mind. The principle of correspondence proves that the external world reflects your internal perception. The principle of vibration exposes that you are not a fixed being, but a flow of consciousness always in motion. This changes everything. You no longer need to cling to a rigid identity. You no longer need to suffer defending an illusion. You no longer need to live in fear of change. Because the truth is, there is no fixed self to protect, only a continuous process of consciousness experiencing itself. And this gives you power. If your external reality reflects your internal state, then the key to transforming your life isn't out there, it's within. By shifting your vibration, you change your experience. Spiritual awakening doesn't happen when you find a definitive identity. It happens when you realize that you were never a fixed identity to begin with, and when you truly understand this, you are free. If this new perspective stirred something in you, don't stop here. This journey is just beginning. Tell me in the comments, what moment in this video made you reflect the most? Your insight might help others who are searching for this knowledge. And if this content brought you value, hit the like button now. That way, YouTube knows more people need to see this truth. While you're at it, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you can keep exploring these ideas with me and never miss a new video. Now, something even deeper is waiting for you. Click the video in the card or the description and keep uncovering this truth. See you there.